Good morning. Cool. This is interactive. It's going to be interactive. If I don't hear interaction, I'll just ask the same question 3 or 4 times. My students at Indian Wesleyan will figure that out, so fine. Start talking. My name is Phil Hartman. It's good to meet you. I hope to, if I haven't, my watch is telling me that I'm having an indoor run. I don't know how hard you guys worship, but apparently Siri thinks I'm going for a light jog right now. I hope to meet a lot of you. I haven't said hello. I want to say hi. That was me in the video. I'm so happy to be here. Starting a new series in a totally new experience. How many of you have been to Blue River before? Good. We had people waiting outside for the yes answers. We're starting a new series called New Life. Everybody say New Life. In this, we're going to walk down our 4 big vision statements, our things that we think bind us together for this community of faith. So we're going to learn the first one today, which is know God. Say know God. The second one is love neighbor. Say love neighbor. Third one is live justice. Say live justice. The last one is forever. Say forever. We're going to know God, love neighbor, live justice forever. So we're going to take a peek at that first one to give us a foundation for what Blue River is going to stand for. Just try to instill some of these ideas into our DNA and into the hearts and minds of those that are here so we can step out in the world and leave an impact creator for the kingdom wherever we go. Today is know God. How many of you out there would say that you are a theologian? It's a big word. Big word. Anybody out there think they're a theologian? Good. How many of you, okay, put your hand in the air, high like this. Go high, like that, up high. And say I, and push yourself. I, and then say and a theologian. Good. Now, to do it again, but like you mean it this time. So I am a theologian. I am a theologian. Break the word down, it's the study, it's knowing God. Wait a minute, what's today's message? There we go, paying attention. Theologian is having an understanding, it's thinking. Anybody here ever sit around and think about the heavenly beings? Anybody ever think about God ever? Good, you're all theologians. And one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we are thinking things that are true. We want to try to orient our theology, what we think we know about God, and push it in a direction that we come to know Him all together, truthfully and accurately, as best as we can. Because I don't know if you know this, but there are like 1 million people out there in the world, and they all think things. And so we want to try to orient our thoughts and things into understanding God clearly. And so that's the point of today. We're going to discover how uniquely special each of us is, so we're loved by a completely unique God. Okay? That's where we're going to go. We're going to start in the book of Acts. So if you have a Bible or a phone, pull it out. If you don't have a Bible or a phone with you, look with your neighbor. But we're going to turn to the book of Acts, chapter 17, starting at verse 16. For me, it's page 1916. I don't know how often that's going to be. The book of Acts it comes after the gospel, so orienting ourselves for what's going on in our big story of Christianity. The 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they come just before this. In there we meet this guy, his name is Jesus, and these people who follow him, they're called disciples. And after Jesus' death, and he's resurrected, and then he comes back alive again, and he ascends out of the way, the book of Acts follows those apostles, now what they're called, those disciples, and the early Christian church. It's like a history textbook, focusing on 2 big characters. Peter, one of the original disciples, who walks around with a shoe in his mouth most of his existence. And the second one that's a big focus for the book of Acts is Paul. And Paul was an enemy of Christianity who then became a really big leader of the early Christian church. And so we're going to follow Paul today in Athens, in Acts 17, verse 16. This is where we're going to start. Do we all find it? Okay. Good. All right, here we go. Well, Paul was waiting for them in Athens. He was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned with the synagogue, with both the Jews and the God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace, day to day, with those who happened to be there. A group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers began to debate with him. Some of them asked, "What's this babbler trying to say? And others remarked, he seems to be advocating for foreign gods. They said this because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus and the resurrection. It's the story we get in the Gospels earlier. Then they took him and brought him to a meeting of the Areopagus. When they said to him, may we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? You are bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we would like to know what they mean. All the Athenians and foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening about the latest ideas. We'll stop there for a second. Okay, so we met this guy, Paul, and he's in Athens, Greece. Anybody been to Athens, Greece? Yeah, a couple people. He's in this place in Athens, just outside of the city a little bit, and it's called the Areopagus. That's a big word. It means the hill of Ares, or the hill of Mars, the god of war. So Mars Hill, maybe there's some churches that get named after that we've heard of. So that's where he's at. And inside of this place, this gathering place, all the really smart people of Athens gather, and they philosophize with each other. That's what I do on Friday nights. My wife and I, we go out in the middle of town square and we just talk about philosophy. It's really exhilarating. But this is what they did. The greatest minds gathered together, and they would talk about the latest, newest, coolest ideas to think, and they would all sit and think with each other. And here's what, just because we're in the Bible, I'm going to orient who these people are. First of all, the people in Athens that Paul is going to be talking with here, they're not followers of Jesus. We're cool with that. They're not following Jesus. Secondly, they're not Jewish, they're Greek. And thirdly, they don't have a Bible. This wouldn't come along for quite some time, but they don't have the history of the Torah or any of the Jewish scriptures either. Okay? So he's going to talk to people who have no connection to Jesus or the God of Israel, any of those historical connections. And it says in there, when Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned with them about the Jews and God-fearing Greeks as well in the marketplace day to day, and the philosophers debate with them, and they were like, what are you even trying to say? It seems like you're advocating for foreign gods. Making idols. Does anybody here ever make an idol in their house? Maybe here got a little idol they built, maybe put some toothpicks and marshmallows. Okay. It's this idea of permanence versus impermanence. This is why people made idols. So, if you think way back in biblical history and language, a story that's somewhat in our cultural narrative is the golden calf. Everybody heard this story? The golden calf. So God is talking to Moses, and while Moses is gone chatting, the people left down there, they go, well, we might as well smelt some stuff and make a big calf, a golden calf to worship. And the reason is because how many of you have ever seen God? Right? How many of you have ever seen a statue of anything? More hands, participatory. Great. It's this idea of permanence versus impermanence. So if you can see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, you can experience it. It makes it real. Does that make sense? So this is where the idea of idol making came from. So Paul sees that they're full of idols. There's all of these permanent made objects that point to something that's impermanent, so that they can worship and see it. If you can't see it, if you can't taste it, if you can't touch it, smell it, how would you possibly know it's real? So this is this culture we're diving into. If you can't do these things, how would I even know if it's real? And so they want to know what Paul's talking about, because they're philosophizing. And I don't know if you know people who like to sit around and just learn stuff, but they like to know stuff. They really it's like a driven in them. If they could learn something new, they want to do that. And so these people hear Paul talking about something they don't know, and they go, if I could know that, I could know something new, and that gives me some power. So this is where this power comes from. So the people in Athens, what they do is treat religion like a buffet. So if you're traveling, you might make an offering to an idol for Hermes, the person who protects those who travel, and you would leave an offering so you'd be protected in your travel. If you were trying to have a family, you might leave an offering with Athena, the goddess that gets you through pregnancies. Or you might leave, if you're about to have a big party and you want to make sure everybody has a really good time, and maybe the wine might run a little low, and you're worried about how far it's stretched, you might leave an offering with Dionysus. so that you get that blessing before. They treat it like a bit of a buffet. You pick and choose what you want to worship and whatever the reason is that suits you. And so they hear Paul and think, here's something new I can add to my buffet collection. Let's learn who this person is. We think a lot of times that this is an old-timey problem. This buffet of picking and choosing what we feel like matters or doesn't matter, or what we need or don't need. But I think if you don't have to think too hard to look around what's going on in the world around us to think, okay, so maybe we do pick and choose things to follow based on what our needs are, and maybe we have invented a theology of lots of different idols that we put our trust in. That maybe we do make gods of other things in our life. This is a cheesy example, but it's one that everyone can get behind, and just to start thinking through this before. This is about to be so embarrassing because you're about to know. I went to Indiana University, that's not embarrassing. But I am a fan of IU football. That is embarrassing. We're the losingest program in the history of college football. The losingest. The closest to us is like we'd have to win like 14 straight seasons undefeated to become second worst. We're bad. And yet, I go down in the fall and I wear IU stuff, probably some candy cane pants if it's not too hot, and I cheer on at the time in Ben Chapel, and we get like beaten by like IPFW's football team. We're bad. But there's this idol making. I adore Indiana University athletics. I will paint my face. I have things that say the clothing on them. Before a game starts, I will be like, okay, I've got my leather socks on, the heater is set just right, and I'm sitting in the chair I'm supposed to, and I had nachos last time, and we're all good to go. Luckily, none of my sports teams are any good. I like the Colts, I like the Vikings, I like Indiana University, and I like the Cubs. It's been rough. 2016 Spotlight, that's where we're at. That's a silly example, but we make idols of things. We're getting close to a new season that's very exciting in the United States called election season. We just elected people and it starts almost instantly, and we put our faith and our trust in different things in those election systems, right? We believe what people will say, we put our faith and trust in those. We could make idols of those as well. In the church, if you're a churchy person, we have this really long book. I've read a lot of this, and there's a couple sections in here that I wish I could just like open up and take scissors and go and just get that section out. Because maybe we don't like the fact that Paul at one point says, women be silent in the church. How do I deal with that if I think women should be able to do that? How do I deal with this? Or some of the Levitical codes, like don't mix chicken, eggs, and milk together. Well, I like breading chicken and making chicken parmesan. I think that's a delicious meal. How do I want to just cut some of these pieces out. So what we find is we pick and choose the stuff that we like. We say, I could do this. Love my neighbor, that sounds really good. Rest on the Sabbath. I enjoy taking a good nap. Tithing. Not so sure about that. Ananias and Sapphira dropping dead metal, we'll cut that part out, and we pick and choose these things. We got a buffet of the things we need in the time. When I went through seminary, I was really broken at this. One of the things that is really easy when you're preaching consistently is to just pick passages you like and always preach about things you really enjoy. So it's really fun to do that. What's hard is when they assign you something that you don't enjoy, and you have to struggle through and work of what this means. We think of the Romans and the Greeks as way out there with idol worship and this smorgasbord of their own theology, but really, if you analyze your own self, you're not too far away from them. Back in Athens, Paul was preaching the good news about the resurrection, and they're on the Areopagus, and they said, can we know this new teaching that you're telling us? Because these are strange ideas to our ears, and we want to know what they mean. Right? They want to learn. So Paul stands up in the Areopagus, verse 22. And he says, people of Athens, I see that you are in every way very religious, for as I walked around and looked carefully imagery and all of your objects, your idols of worship. I even found an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. You are so ignorant of the very thing that you worship. And this is what I'm going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and he does not live in temples built by human hands, and he is not served by human hands, as if he would need anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. For one man he made all the nations, and that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out the appointed times and histories and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out and find him, though he is not far from any of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. Paul starts with a really strong emphasis on this really big character of who God is. And he makes three kind of really big statements about it. The first one, we're going to repeat these after ourselves. Okay, ready? Here we go. God made the whole world and everything in it.
God made the whole world and everything in it.
He is in charge of everything. And he gave everything life and breath. So he made everything in it. He's in charge of everything in it. And he gives life to everything. Those are big statements, right? Those feel like real important. If I was in a Marvel movie and the villain came down and was like, by the way, I made everything, I'm in charge of everything, and I make everything live, I would just be like, here's my Iron Man outfit. I'm not even worthy of it. I'm not even why I'm trying, right? There's a motion we're going to do. This is one of my favorite things. We're going to internalize this. This is how we're going to start. First thing, put your hand up like this. Like you're grabbing something. You're going to say, God is infinitely powerful. God is infinitely powerful. You've got to put get maybe a little hip action. So God is infinitely powerful. Good. We're going to start here. Infinitely powerful. In the Old Testament, in Exodus, when Moses, this character, meets this God in a burning bush that's burning, but it's not burning, and he says, hey, who are you? What's your name? God responds by saying, I am. The translation for it's not great. It could mean I am, I was, or I will be. So he said, what's your name? He goes, I exist. That's pretty cool. I exist. In Genesis 1, God creates the heavens and the earth, so we get this imagery of God speaking creation into existence. He said, let there be light, and there was light. Let there be expanse between the sea and the sea, and we'll create new sky and land. And he spoke, and things happened. This is a test. Have any of you ever spoken and made something appear out of nowhere? Anybody ever just gone, I gave up soda recently, so this joke has changed? Any of you ever gone, Diet Coke? I've never had one appear in my hand yet. I've always wanted. That would be so cool. Just, Fanta grape. Everyone give it a shot. Just say something you want to appear in your hand. That's, you can say out loud. Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. $1 million. Anybody? Good. If you can speak and it happened, that is pretty cool. All right. Third thing, this is from Psalm 8. It says, the works of heavens, the works of the skies, of everything, is the work of God's fingertips. What is the most amount you have ever pushed with your fingertip? Like you were like, I'm going to move this cinder block. I'm just going to push it with my pinky. Right? The work of the heavens is God's fingertips. There's recently, they aimed the Hubble Space Telescope at a quarter-sized piece of the night sky that is pitch black. There's nothing in this that they could see. They aimed it at it, they zoomed in, and they set the exposure really low, and it took a picture of this much. Like if you just held this up to the night sky and saw that much dark sky, that's what they took a picture of. And inside of it, there were like 37 galaxies and like a bazillion stars. The smallest, one of the largest objects that we found in the universe is a black hole called TON. T-O-N-N. aptly named. It's a black hole that has the mass of, let's see if I can remember this correctly. It's like 100 billion times the mass of the black hole at the center of our galaxy. So we're like an atom, and the center of our galaxy is like the size of this building, and it's 100 billion times bigger than that. The work of God's fingertips. Anybody ever moved a 400 million ton anything with like your finger? We're starting to catch a picture. This is what he said. The Lord God made everything in it. He made everything. He is in charge of it, and He gives life to everything. He is. We got to do motions. But He is. Great. But why is Paul talking about this? He continues on. He says, God did this so that they would seek Him and perhaps reach out and find Him, as He is not far from any of us. So we have this. Come on. Here we go. But He is intimately personal. He did this so that you would seek out and reach out to find Him, as He's not far from any of us. He's infinitely powerful, but you got to do the Aladdin genie voice, like phenomenal cosmic power. That's how you're going to remember from now on. So He's intimately personal, so that we would reach out and find Him. Since we are God's offspring, we should not think the divine as being like gold, silver, stone. It's not an idol, an image made by human design and skill. For there will come a day when He will judge the world and the justice by the man He has appointed. He has given proof to everyone through His raising from the dead. When they heard about this, some of them sneered, but others said, "Could you tell us more about this subject?" And at that, Paul left the council, and some of the peoples became followers of Paul and believed. Among them was Dionysius, a member of the Areopagus, and a woman called Damaris, and a number of others. God did this. He is. And God did this so that you, not just the people in the Areopagus, not just the people Paul's like, hey, let's talk about it. I want to learn more about this. Tell me about this infinitely powerful, infinitely personal God that's just within my grasp. Not just so that they would reach out, but that you would reach out. And the most amazing statement in there, He's not far from any one of us. I think that is a really hard thing to grasp. And I think it's one of the first things about knowing God is the first big hurdle. That He is both pushes stars around with His black holes around with His fingertips, right? He speaks things into existence, controls, gives life, gives breath, but also right within your grasp, intimately personal. I need to hear that a little bit. I think as I flip on this dichotomy, sometimes I'm like Bruce Almighty. I'm like, smite me, Almighty Smiter! Right? Is that Bruce Almighty? Right? Yeah. And I'm like, I really need you to look, I forgot to write this paper, and I need a blizzard tomorrow, right? I'm like Bart Simpson in the first season. He just needs school to be canceled so he can study for a test. I just need God to show up and be this authoritative, powerful thing in my life. And I forget this one. And I think other times I'm like, I really could just use a friend today. And I don't expect greatness. It's a weird dichotomy of it. But He's not far. So despite however you walked in, whatever's happened in your past, whatever you think, boy, I could never be near something this, but He's still, so despite all those things, He's still right within reach. He's not far. He's intimately personal. Isaiah, before they call, answer. While they're speaking, I still hear. Joshua, have I not commanded you? Be strong, be courageous, don't be frightened, don't be dismayed. For the God is with you wherever it is that you go. The question becomes, do you see God as close or far away? This dichotomy that I find myself balancing. Is He really involved in my life, or am I detached? You're not going to find many in the church setting that believe in this very limited power God. We're not often like, well, I mean, He could, but He can't. But I think some of us still live with this sense that God maybe couldn't handle it. I had a pastor, a friend of mine one time say, if you're praying for something that you could go do, you should probably just go do that. Maybe expect something greater. It doesn't mean that you have to believe things in super literal ways. You don't have to read answers in Genesis by Ken Ham and be like, this is exactly how we move forward. But it means that we got to understand who God is, this uniqueness in nature, that He is, which means He created everything, He's in charge of everything, and He gives everything life and purpose. But that God is also a loving Father, near to you. And the founding verse for this mission statement for it is from 1 John 4, it's 9 through 10. This is how God showed His love among us, that He sent His one and only Son into the world that we might live through Him. And this is love, not that we love God, but that He loved us and sent His Son as an atoning sacrifice for our own sins. The good news of knowing God, this infinitely powerful, intimately personal God, is this. And I want you to repeat it after me. You are not alone. One more time, like with a little gusto. Now make it personal. I am not alone. Because you are together with God. A God who loves you beyond measure that you couldn't even understand. A God that is but so that we are not alone. Whatever you experience, whatever you walked in the door with this morning, you're not alone. The God that made everything and pushes things around with the fingertips and created life and breath and is so unbelievably unknowing and just, it's like unreal, is also right here, walking a day in your shoes with you. Experiencing life with you. Everything is world of God. The God who made you and created you has come near to you and walked a day in your shoes. You're not alone in this life. If there's anything we got to know about God, 3 things. We're going to internalize this. He is. And which means, one more time with gusto.